Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the ancient whispers of sleep, gliding through the misty halls where dreams are spun. Imagine for a moment, you're not in your cozy bed, but instead, you're drifting on a silken cloud, suspended somewhere between wakefulness and the deep, inky embrace of slumber. Around you, shadows dance, not menacingly, but with a gentle, flowing rhythm, like currents in an unseen river. You feel a profound quiet settling over everything, a hush that smooths out the edges of the day's worries, preparing you for a journey into the mind's own private theater. This isn't just any sleep, mind you. It's the kind of sleep orchestrated by figures of ancient myth, beings whose very existence revolved around the art of rest and revelation. You might think you're pretty good at sleeping, but compared to the meticulous processes managed by these deities, you probably won't survive this level of mythic slumber. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see how far these sleepy stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We begin our quiet exploration by tracing the very roots of sleep, or rather, the very roots of the divine entities responsible for it. You see, the Greeks, those master storytellers, didn't just stumble into slumber. They believed it was a carefully managed affair, overseen by a pantheon of specialized gods. And among these, presiding over the forms that inhabit your nightly visions, was Morpheus. But before Morpheus could even be Morpheus, there had to be something before, something primal, formless, and utterly ancient. Imagine a time when the world wasn't quite solid, when the concepts we take for granted were just beginning to coalesce from the primordial soup. This is where you find Nyx, the primordial goddess of night. She wasn't born per se, but rather emerged from chaos itself. A vast, yawning void that preceded everything. Nyx simply was, a swirling, enveloping darkness that stretched across the cosmos. And from Nyx, without any male consort, sprang forth a bewildering array of equally fundamental concepts. One of these, her very first child in some accounts, was Erebus, the personification of primordial darkness. So picture this, night and darkness, two vast, silent, and immensely powerful beings, existing before the sun, before the moon, before even the concept of light. They were the original power couple, if you will, but with a kind of quiet, brooding intensity. You won't find them bickering over who gets to pick the Netflix show. From the union of Nyx and Erebus, the very air of existence thickened, and a host of other profound entities came into being. Think about the feeling of dread, the pangs of old age, the slow creep of strife. These weren't just abstract ideas to the Greeks. They were personified, divine beings. And among these children of night and darkness, a truly remarkable trio emerged: Hypnos, Thanatos, and the Oneiroi. Hypnos was the god of sleep itself, that heavy, blessed state of unconsciousness. His twin brother, Thanatos, was the gentle god of death, often depicted with wings, carrying the deceased peacefully away. It's almost sweet, isn't it? Death as a gentle escort, not a gruesome reaper. You almost wish your tax collector was as considerate. This mainstream historical fact, the close relationship between Hypnos and Thanatos, highlights the ancient Greek perception of sleep as a temporary, milder form of death, a brief respite before the ultimate one. It makes sense, really. Both involve a cessation of consciousness, a departure from the waking world. Now, where does our friend Morpheus fit into this sprawling family tree? Morpheus, along with his brothers Phobetor and Thanatos, were the Oneiroi, the collective name for the gods of dreams. They were the sons of Hypnos, making Morpheus the grandson of Nyx and Erebus. So, you can see, the art of dreaming was deeply ingrained in the very fabric of the cosmos, stemming directly from the primal forces of night and darkness. It wasn't some random neurological function, but a divine inheritance passed down through generations of ethereal beings. This lineage gives Morpheus a certain gravitas, a weight of ancient power, even as his role is to gently guide you into oblivion. It's a bit like finding out your local barista is actually descended from ancient royalty, capable of brewing not just coffee, but the very essence of night. Historians still argue whether the precise familial connections among these primordial deities were universally accepted across all Greek city-states, or if variations existed in local traditions, though the core concept of night and darkness as progenitors remains largely consistent. It's one of those delightful little scholarly debates, isn't it? Imagine a couple of academics, perhaps a touch disheveled, arguing vehemently over who birthed whom in the grand scheme of cosmic slumber. So, with Morpheus's ancient lineage firmly established, let's now drift further into the geography of dreams themselves, for they weren't just random wanderings of the mind. To the Greeks, dreams had a physical address, a specific point of origin within the vast, shadowy underworld. Imagine, if you will, a place nestled deep within the realms of Erebus, and Nyx, a silent, perpetually dark landscape where the very air hums with unspoken thoughts and half-formed images. This is the land of dreams, a kind of celestial waiting room where all the visions, both comforting and unsettling, reside before being dispatched to the sleeping world. And within this shadowy domain, there stood two very important gates, the gates of horn and ivory. You might be picturing grand, imposing structures, perhaps adorned with intricate carvings, but try to imagine them not as solid, unyielding barriers, but as shimmering portals, almost ethereal in their construction. The Greeks believed that all dreams passed through one of these two gates before reaching a human mind. If a dream was true, prophetic, or sent by the gods with a genuine message, it would exit through the gate of horn. Why horn, you ask? Well, horn, being a translucent material, was associated with clarity and transparency. Think of a polished piece of horn, allowing light to pass through it, revealing what lies beyond. A dream emerging from this gate was considered pure, unadulterated truth, a direct transmission from the divine or the subconscious. You know, like when you dream of finally finding that matching sock, and then bam, it's actually there in the morning. Truly prophetic. However, not all dreams were so reliable. Many, in fact, were deceptive, misleading, or simply the fanciful meanderings of a weary mind. These dreams, the Greeks held, would pass through the gate of ivory. Ivory, being opaque, was associated with deception and obscurity. Just as you can't see through a piece of ivory, so too were the dreams that passed through its gate. They were pretty, perhaps even captivating, but ultimately untrustworthy, full of illusions and empty promises. It's like getting a beautifully wrapped gift that turns out to contain nothing but packing peanuts. Disappointing, but at least the packaging was nice. This distinction was a mainstream historical fact, deeply embedded in ancient Greek thought, especially in their interpretations of omens and divine messages. Homer, in the Odyssey, even mentions these gates, lending them significant literary and cultural weight. This curious detail about the gates of horn and ivory wasn't just a quirky tidbit. It was a practical guide for ancient dream interpreters. If you had a dream that felt particularly vivid, clear, and resonant, you might deduce it came from the gate of horn and held real meaning. But if your dream was foggy, illogical, or full of fantastical elements that defied reality, perhaps you were flying, but also doing your taxes at the same time, and it likely slipped through the gate of ivory meant to entertain or confuse, but not to guide. This fringe tidbit illustrates the sophisticated, albeit mystical, framework the Greeks applied to their dream lives, trying to categorize and understand the chaotic nature of nightly visions. You know, much like we try to categorize all the strange things that appear on the internet these days. Is it real? Is it fake? Did it come through the gate of horn or the gate of ivory? The journey a dream took from its ethereal dwelling to your sleeping mind was overseen by the Oneiroi, with Morpheus playing a starring role. They were the celestial postmen, delivering these nightly missives. Imagine Morpheus, a figure of shifting forms, perhaps with soft, feathery wings, flitting through the starlit void, carrying a small, shimmering bundle of your very own dreams. He wasn't just tossing them haphazardly. He was carefully placing them, weaving them into the tapestry of your sleeping consciousness. This intricate system highlights how much the ancient Greeks valued dreams, seeing them not as mere physiological phenomena, but as significant interactions with the divine or the deeper self. Historians still argue whether the concept of these distinct gates for true and false dreams originated solely from poetic invention, or if it reflected a broader, perhaps even older, philosophical understanding of dream states within various Hellenic traditions. It's a fascinating debate, as it touches upon the very nature of truth and illusion in the ancient world, even within the confines of our slumber. So as you lie here, gently drifting, you can almost feel the presence of these ancient dream carriers, navigating the silent pathways of the night, bringing you exactly what you need, or perhaps exactly what you don't. It's all part of the gentle art of sleep, as perfected by the gods themselves. Now that we've journeyed through the ethereal gates, let's get down to the specifics of what Morpheus actually did. You see, while Hypnos, his father, was in charge of sleep in general, that lovely, heavy blanket of unconsciousness that descends upon you each night, Morpheus had a much more specialized, ere I say, artistic role. His name, Morpheus, actually comes from the Greek word morpha, meaning form or shape. And that's precisely what he was responsible for, shaping the forms that appeared in your dreams. Imagine him as a divine actor, or perhaps a celestial costume designer. When a dream was to be delivered to a sleeping mortal, Morpheus would take on the precise form of a human being. This wasn't some vague, shadowy figure, but a meticulously crafted apparition. If the dream needed to feature your long-lost Aunt Mildred, Morpheus would meticulously recreate Aunt Mildred, right down to the slightly crooked smile and the faint scent of lavender. He could imitate anyone, your parents, your friends, that annoying neighbor with the perpetually barking dog. This focus on human forms was his unique purview among the Oneiroi. So while other dream gods might be responsible for the swirling landscapes or the fantastical beasts that populate your slumber, Morpheus was the master of the human element, ensuring that the characters in your dreams were as lifelike and convincing as possible. It's a bit like a method actor who becomes the role, rather than just playing it. Except Morpheus does it infinitely faster, and without the dramatic interviews afterward. This specific duty of Morpheus, the ability to flawlessly mimic human forms, is a mainstream historical fact often recounted in ancient texts, particularly Ovid's Metamorphoses. It is a detail that underscores the ancient Greek fascination with the human psyche and the subtle ways the divine could interact with it. They understood that the most impactful dreams were often those that featured familiar faces, prompting deep emotional responses. Think about it. A dream where you're talking to a talking squirrel is one thing, but a dream where you're having a heart-to-heart with a deceased loved one, that hits differently, doesn't it? That was Morpheus's specialty. Now, here's a quirky or fringe tidbit about Morpheus that often gets overlooked. While he primarily dealt with human forms, some accounts suggest he could also assume the guise of any living creature for the purposes of a dream, provided it was relevant to the sleeper's consciousness. So, if you were a farmer deeply concerned about your prize-winning goat, Morpheus might appear as that very goat, offering cryptic advice. This expands his portfolio beyond just human impersonations, hinting at a broader influence over the animal kingdom of dreams. It's almost as if he had a vast wardrobe of identities, meticulously catalogued and ready for deployment at a moment's notice. You know, like that one friend who has a costume for literally every occasion. Oh, it's Tuesday? I'll be a platypus. This intricate dance of dream delivery, where Morpheus played the lead character, raises an interesting open scholarly debate. Historians still argue whether the specific division of labor among the Oneiroi was strictly adhered to in all popular beliefs, or if there was some overlap, or even if Morpheus's role expanded over time in different regions. Was his ability to assume animal forms a later embellishment, or an original part of his portfolio? It's a tricky thing, pinning down precise theological definitions across an entire ancient civilization. Imagine trying to get everyone in modern society to agree on the exact rules of, say, a really complex board game. You'd have countless interpretations, house rules, and outright disagreements. So too with the nuanced world of Greek mythology. As you continue to relax, imagine Morpheus gliding through the dreamscape, meticulously crafting each face, each gesture, ensuring that the figures who populate your slumber are exactly as they need to be, whether to deliver a message offer comfort, or perhaps just to make you scratch your head in the morning. He is the quiet architect of your nightly cast, shaping the very essence of your dream interactions. With Morpheus diligently shaping the human figures in your dreams, it's worth remembering that he wasn't working solo. The Oneiroi, the collective group of dream gods, were a team, each with their own specialized portfolio, ensuring a comprehensive and sometimes bewildering array of nightly visions. Think of them as a celestial production company, with Morpheus as the lead actor and director for all things human. But who else was on this starry crew? And what peculiar nightmares or pleasantries did they bring? Beyond Morpheus, the most commonly cited of his brothers were Phobetor and Thanatos. Just like Morpheus's name indicated his role with forms, their names, too, held clues to their particular talents. Phobetor, whose name means frightener or terrifier, was the bringer of night terrors, the one responsible for the monstrous and frightening apparitions that might invade your sleep. If you ever woke up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, convinced there was a shadowy beast under your bed, you could probably thank Phobetor for that charming experience. He would often take on the forms of animals, or even inanimate objects, but with a terrifying twist. Imagine a dream where your comfy armchair suddenly sprouts fangs and chases you down a dark hallway. That's Phobetor's handiwork. He's the special effects guy for nightmares, ensuring the monsters are truly monstrous. This mainstream historical fact of Phobetor, his role as the bringer of frightful dreams, underscores the ancient Greek understanding that dreams were and always comforting. They could also be a source of fear and anxiety, reflecting the deeper anxieties of the human condition. It's comforting, in a strange way, to know that even thousands of years ago, people were waking up from bad dreams and blaming a god for it, rather than just too much late-night cheese. Then there was Thanatos, whose name stems from fantasia, meaning imagination or appearance. Thanatos was the master of the inanimate, the architect of the strange and fantastical landscapes, the odd objects, and the impossible scenarios that populate your dreams. If you've ever dreamt that your house was made of jello, or that you are floating on a giant teacup through a sky filled with talking pianos, you can probably attribute that delightful absurdity to Thanatos. He was the one who ensured your subconscious got its dose of surrealism, crafting the backdrops and props for your nightly adventures. He's the set designer, the one who makes sure the scenery is just ... off enough to let you know you're not quite in Kansas anymore. This quirky or fringe tidbit about Thanatos' specific domain shows a subtle yet profound understanding of the different layers of dreaming. It wasn't just about people and monsters, but also about the very fabric of the dream world itself, however illogical it might seem. Together, these three brothers, Morpheus, Phobetor, and Thanatos, formed the core team of the Oneiroi, ensuring a rich and varied nightly experience for mortals. Morpheus handled the human characters, Phobetor conjured the scary beasts and horrors, and Thanatos created the bizarre settings and objects. You could almost see them huddled together, planning your night's entertainment, a divine writer's room crafting the next big blockbuster of your brain. There is an interesting open scholarly debate regarding the precise number and names of the oneiroi beyond these three. Some ancient sources hint at other, less defined dream spirits, perhaps responsible for very specific types of dreams or nuances within the dream world. Were there dozens more, like a vast administrative department of dreams, or were these three the primary divine figures? Historians still argue whether there were additional, unnamed oneiroi, or if these three simply represented the main categories of dream experiences, with any other variations being subfacets of their influence. It's a bit like trying to figure out how many actual elves worked in Santa's workshop versus just the popular ones. The full roster remains a delightful mystery for academic discussion. So as you continue to gently sink into the cushions, remember that your dreams are not just random electrical impulses. They are, in the ancient Greek mind, a meticulously crafted, multifaceted production, a nocturnal play starring characters, fears, and fantastic worlds, all orchestrated by a team of specialized deities, ensuring you get your full dose of nightly escapism. As the oneiroi diligently weave their nightly tapestry, delivering human forms, conjuring fears, and shaping surreal landscapes, it's essential to zoom out and understand the broader Greek perspective on sleep itself. For them, sleep wasn't merely a biological necessity. It was a profound mystical state, intimately intertwined with the ultimate quietus, death. This connection is not meant to be alarming, but rather profoundly calming. Imagine sleep as death's gentle sibling, a temporary departure from the waking world, preparing you for the more permanent journey. The Greeks personified Hypnos, the god of sleep, as the twin brother of Thanatos, the god of peaceful death. They were often depicted together, sometimes even indistinguishable, save for subtle nuances. Hypnos might hold a poppy flower or a horn filled with slumber-inducing liquid, while Thanatos might carry a sword or a butterfly, symbolizing the soul. This mainstream historical fact, the fraternal bond between sleep and death, speaks volumes about their philosophy. They saw sleep as a daily rehearsal for death, a comforting assurance that the end of life wouldn't necessarily be a violent rupture, but a tranquil fading, much like drifting off into a deep, dreamless sleep. It's a bit like getting a preview of the main event and finding out it's actually quite serene. No jump scares, just a gentle fade to black. This profound connection made sleep a sacred state. Temples to Hypnos existed, where people sought healing in prophetic dreams. The very act of falling asleep was seen as a small, daily act of trusting in the divine, of surrendering to forces beyond one's control. You weren't just tired. You were entering a liminal space, supervised by benevolent, albeit powerful deities. Now, for a quirky or fringe tidbit that often gets overlooked, some ancient Greek medical practices, particularly those associated with the cult of Asclepius, the god of medicine, heavily relied on incubation, which was essentially a medically induced, or at least facilitated, sleep. Patients would sleep within sacred temple precincts, hoping that Asclepius, or his divine messengers, would appear in their dreams, offering diagnoses or cures. They weren't just looking for rest. They were actively seeking divine intervention through slumber. It's almost like a very spiritual sleep clinic, where instead of a CPAP machine, you got a divine consultation. Imagine your doctor prescribing a good night's rest in a temple as your primary treatment plan. Just get a good 8 hours in the sanctuary, and your sciatica should clear right up. This practice highlights the active role sleep played in their concept of well-being, blurring the lines between the physical and the spiritual. It wasn't just a passive state, but a gateway to knowledge and healing. The very concept of a peaceful death, mirrored by the tranquility of sleep, is also part of an open scholarly debate. Historians still argue whether the widespread acceptance of Thanatos as a gentle, winged figure, rather than a grim reaper, truly reflected the common person's view of death, or if it was more of an idealized poetic construct. Was death truly seen as a calm slumber by the masses, or was there an underlying fear that the gentle imagery attempted to assuage? It's a fascinating question, trying to separate the comforting narratives from the lived anxieties of a bygone era. You know, like trying to figure out if people really believe all those life hacks on social media, or if they just like the idea of them. So as you feel the soft ebb and flow of your own breath and the gentle slowing of your thoughts, remember the ancient Greeks and their profound reverence for this state. You are not merely resting. You are participating in a timeless ritual, guided by forces as old as night itself. Let Morpheus shape your dreams with gentle hands. Let Hypnos bring you profound rest. And know that in this quiet surrender, you are connected to a long lineage of humanity seeking peace in the darkness. The night deepens now, and the world outside softens into muted tones. Feel the quiet hush descending, a gentle embrace that cradles you in its stillness. Your eyelids grow heavy, not with fatigue, but with a serene readiness to drift. The stories of ancient gods and their silent ministrations begin to recede, leaving behind only the lingering sensation of peace. Let every breath become a sigh of contentment, a soft release of the day's last lingering traces. There is only this moment, this quiet descent into the tranquil depths of your own mind, guided by an unseen hand. The whispers of myth become the quiet hum of the night, and the forms in your mind begin to dissolve into soothing shadows.